Oh, that's good. Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm not sure who's online, but I think I'll be able to see from the chats. If anybody's here, maybe you can chat and give me a sign. We're just going to take a few minutes to wait for everybody to come on. Usually people are not right on time at 7 o'clock. So there we are. Ah, hi everyone. Oh, you're all coming on. Yay. From Miami, we have we have Richo, Joan. Oh my goodness, this is awesome. Yay. I want everybody to know this is my first live webinar. So there's going to be some glitches. I want you to know now, just trying to get all of this together has me a little, mixed up a little bit, but I have my assistant Carissa who's with me and she's going to help me through this. Hey, Carissa. But
hello,
thanks
everyone.
for coming. Hi. My goodness. Thanks everybody for logging in. This is great. Bob, Michelle, Rita, so many people. Andrew, you're looking great, my friend. Thank you, Andrew. This is awesome. So we'll take a few more minutes, but I just want to thank you all for coming tonight. As some of you may or may not know, I just came back from my trip of south of France, which was an incredible experience. So I have a mixture of being slightly jet lagged, and I wasn't sure if this webinar was the best timing, but I think I'm well rested. But the other part, I feel like I'm going to be in a great spirit because I just had a week of nothing but pleasure and elevating of the senses and seeing some beautiful scenery. So I think my spirit is in this perfect flirtatious space for you all. So, thanks again. We're going to have a jam-packed webinar with lots of information, and we may also have some technical issues. So Carissa's there to help me out should that happen, just to be patient with that because this, like I said, this is brand new. So sometimes I do mistakes. Okay. Hi, Sherry. Hi, everyone. So it looks like a lot of you are already here and ready to go. So I'm going to get started and we're going to dive right in with this full agenda. So here we go. I'm getting ready to screen share everything. The screen. Can you give me a heads up on yes?
Yep, it's showing for me.
Awesome. All right. So welcome everyone to the Fearless Flirting webinar, where you're going to learn about creating desire while maintaining dignity. So thanks everyone. The motivation really behind this webinar is really to help those of you who are listening to really shift from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance, specifically regarding flirting and dating, because I know it can be really discouraging at times. And I want to set it straight that it's actually a lot of fun. A scarcity mindset really tells people that they're in lack and that opportunities are few and far between, which can really create a lot of unnecessary fear and anxiety. And on the other hand, abundance mindset tells you that there's always new chances and new opportunities. So when you do fail, because inevitably you will, this is part of life, you always have another shot at it. And that's what keeps us hopeful. And of course, when we fail, it stings and it doesn't always feel good, but, maintain this idea that there's always wonderful opportunities out there for you, including wonderful men, and to stay open with this dating process and mindset. Okay. And the other reason for this webinar is because I do have some exciting news that I want to share with you. I'll be doing a live event in October that I'll be giving you details about at the end of the event. So if you don't want to watch this entire webinar, you can go right to the registration page for the live event, which will be held in my hometown of Montreal. Woo-hoo. Really excited about it. Just go to the webpage, sensualitysecrets.com/EYE. And if you enter the promo code webinar, this will actually give you a 50% discount since you participate in today's event. So instead of it costing you $9.97 for the 3-day event, it'll only cost you $4.97. Also, everybody, if you have any questions, try to keep them till the end if possible. But if you have a burning desire to ask me right away, you can. But ultimately, you could also wait till the end. All right. So now let's begin with the webinar. Here we go, everyone. In my ebook, Desirable and Deserving, I've addressed the topic of flirting in detail because many women I worked with struggle with flirting, and maybe you could even relate to some of the reasons why. You look at yourself in the mirror one day and you feel really old, tired and unattractive on the inside and on the outside, and wondering if anybody would ever want you. I've been in that situation many a time. And here's some of the reasons that you could be feeling this. You've come out of a loveless relationship where you were both losing self-worth every minute you stayed together. Or perhaps you're close to 50 and officially reached middle-aged, and you need Botox and eyeglass readers, and you see that you're aging, and this aging is taking away your beauty. Or you're struggling with confidence as menopause symptoms begin to play havoc on your life, like I sometimes feel they are with me. You're single with no children and feel like you've wasted your precious time with so many wrong men that at the last, you're now at the end of the game and you feel like that's it. I've run out of time to even find the right guy. So if any of this sounds familiar to you, I can totally relate to this. And these thoughts can really make women feel stuck and shut off their sensual energy and make them come across as rigid and stiff. And this lack of flow and vitality can leave you feeling defeated with the thought of dating. So if you're looking for a way to kind of help release these burdens and negative inner voice so that you can feel more desirable and express your femininity while maintaining your independence and dignity, you've come to the right place, because I'm here to remind you that you've still got it. And that's exactly what I help my clients with. I typically work with women who are divorced over 40, who are struggling with their body image and feeling tired of feeling flawed and are in constant self-doubt, which inevitably affects their self-esteem and can cause them to kind of give up on any possible notion that a man can find them attractive. The women I worked with learned to connect with their body, rediscover their feminine essence, and began to radiate their inner and outer beauty. A transformation began to happen where they were no longer afraid to be seen. Therefore, their age and size no longer mattered because sensuality was awakened and playfulness emerged. So throughout this webinar, I want to teach you as much as I can to really help you get some insight on this playfulness. But before I do, I just want to share a little bit about myself so that you know who you're talking to. So voila, there's a picture of me. I was once married and was playing the role of a devoted wife to a man for 5 years, only to find out that the last 2 years of my marriage were built on lies because he was having an affair. The day I found out, I felt like my whole world was pulled out from underneath me. And I went into this downward spiral of self-doubt and self-loathing. And I remember cringing, imagining all of the things that were happening when I wasn't looking, all the memories of every conversation, every business trip, every late night at work came flooding into my mind. And then the real pain hit me, like somehow I caused it, like somehow I could have even prevented it. And then, of course, I start beating myself up. And how could I have been so trusting? What did I do to deserve this? Was I that unappealing? If only I wasn't working so much. If only I didn't love my work so much that kept me there late at night teaching. And I felt like it was my fault because I was unattractive, undesirable. So here I am feeling unworthy and only being able to find some sense of resolution and refuge in my work until the first man to give me attention showed up. And boy, did I soak it up. I ignored any common sense because his attention was like a good drug that made me feel like a wanted woman again. And then a year into this relationship, he too cheated on me. And now my insecurity turned into anger. And I was determined to beat men at their game. And I was going to create the life I wanted under the terms that I wanted. And I was going to use them the way I felt they were using me. And I have to say, anger is an incredible fuel because it was the most productive time of my life. I won the Canadian Open Rhythm Championship, as you can see here. I increased the sales of the studios that I was working at by 40%, which gave me the opportunity to open another studio of my own. And then I also started an online business. Why not? I was feeling fueled. It was incredible. And I began to speak at many live events that were actually geared towards men, as you can see here. That's David D'Angelo up there. And that's me with a few guys teaching them about body language and how to pick up women, if you could imagine that. And I have to say, being part of these events really confirmed my suspicions on the male species and how they were objectifying women. And I have to say, truth be told, my anger just grew and I was pissed off and I actually gave up on men. And one day, just as I finished speaking on a stage a room full of men about attracting women, I literally emotionally collapsed. I rushed off to find a corner where I could cry and not be seen. And I really felt exhausted of pretending to feel great. And when I thought I was alone, I let all the pain out and I was sobbing what felt like an eternity. And in that moment, as I was sobbing, I did feel a man's arms wrap themselves around me. And when I looked up, it was a dear friend who was at the event, who had followed me out of the conference room. And he was holding me and just let me cry and didn't even ask questions. It's almost like he knew. And in that moment, I realized that I was just tired of playing the role of this superwoman. It was my fear and insecurity that was really leading every decision I was making regarding men. So here I was, completely vulnerable, and it was a man that was actually consoling me, supporting me, and being attentive to me in my worst time. And so in that moment, I decided it was time to shift my mindset, and it was time to invest in me. And so that's what I did. I read books and find out that I wasn't the only one going through this. Others were having similar experiences. So I went to seminars for my personal development that really supported my growth and helped me get on track to recovery. And I became curious about life. And that curiosity really gave me courage to step out of my comfort zone, to experience new things that ignited my soul. I hung out with people who lived their lives with a sense of purpose and joy. As I devoted energy in my well-being, a shift began to happen. And this time, I started to actually like who I was becoming. I noticed the kind of compliments I was receiving from people, including men. They were about me having this charming demeanor, my openness and my femininity. They mentioned how easy it was to communicate with me because they were not sensing any judgment from me. And this gave me a kind of courage to start flirting again and allow for the kind of quality men to show up in my life. And yes, they did. So I devoted myself to my personal development, and that's why I'm here with you right now, because I found a way to live my life with a full potential and to share my journey with you and hopefully inspire women to feel motivated again with dating as much as I am. So my intention is to really teach you as much as I can today to maintain a supportive and playful environment. And I do hope you join me in co-creating this mood, even with my mistakes along the way. As Marianne Williamson would say, shift your perspective, and that's when you create a miracle. So hopefully you'll find little shifts along the way with some of the perspectives that I share with you. So the purpose of this webinar is for you to shift from an expression of scarcity to an expression of abundance. So there are some concepts that I've researched that I feel can help really alleviate some of the frustrations with regarding dating. So the three topics that we're actually going to talk about today, one of them being the new paradigm and gender role differences. The second thing we're going to get into is my flirting formula, part one, which is creating a charismatic attitude and how we do that. And the third part of the webinar will be the part two of my flirting formula, which is raising sexual energy in order to enhance chemistry. So let's begin with this new paradigm. So what we traditionally defined as relationship is shifting. And this shift has created a confusion, a sort of inner dilemma between our upbringing and the new possibilities. I have my old-fashioned upbringing that always pulls me there, and I have all of this new possibilities of relating with a man that I'm drawn to. So I'm in this constant duality back and forth, and some of you may feel that. And this is sort of the dilemma that we're in right now, especially with this the sort of generation of the 50s and above, or 40, 45 and above. And so to discover these new possibilities, it requires living in truth and transparency, which I have to tell you is no easy task. It requires courage, and the kind of courage that really needs to be nurtured daily by checking in with your feelings and your intentions. Right? This new paradigm of being in relation needs to be approached with a curiosity, a value that I truly hold dear to my heart, and courage to actually take action. And why I say curiosity? Because it allows me to be open, to be receptive to possibilities, to do the research, and to find out these new ideas. And finding out these new ideas really keeps me in a more open spirit, and it allows me to shift. And that shift inevitably gives me more confidence, simply because I have more awareness now. I don't feel limited. Again, I'm not coming from a place of fear. I have better understanding. And that confidence gives me the courage to speak my truth, to be transparent in the most difficult of times, even if when it's not easy. So one of my many discoveries comes from Alison Armstrong, who is a relationship coach. And she makes distinctions between men and women. And two of the distinctions that we're going to talk about today are the gender role differences, that with women, we have a diffused awareness compared to a single focus, which happens to be more with men. And also this notion of reproductive limits that can lead a woman to be sometimes schizophrenics, I have to say. So let's begin with the first one, the single-focused. A single-focused man's purpose is to achieve results. So when a single-focused man pays attention to one thing at a time, they can only focus on one thing, one concept, one activity at a time in order to achieve results. Often women can interpret this as if he's being unattentive or stubborn. And of course, this ends up being the worst thing because it leaves him feeling disrespected because we want to interrupt that moment. We feel like you're not paying attention, so we interrupt him all the time while he's trying to be in this focused place, and it can actually leave him feeling disrespected. For women, we have this diffused awareness, which really allows us to do many things at once. We can walk into a room and kind of scan the room and easily get a feel for what's going on. And it allows us to multitask and maintain connections while we're doing this multitasking. So, you'll see this in conversation with women. We can be a bunch of women in a room and notice what's going on around us. And we constantly interrupt each other as we're having a conversation. With men, when we're together, they tend to have one thought at a time. One guy's speaking and he shares his thoughts while the other guys are kind of listening in and really trying to pay attention to that thought. They're not always interrupting each other. And women tend to do this a lot because we're always in many spaces at the same time. So a man, now this is when it comes to dating, this is where it becomes interesting because a man always has a result to produce. And even when in dating, so the result can make sure that the woman kind of gets to the restaurant on time without being stuck in traffic. Then he needs to focus on ordering the food. Then he needs to focus on the kind of wine that you'd like. Then all of these actions required focused attention to ensure a good result. And meanwhile, the woman is sitting there in this in this sort of focused situation that he's trying to maintain. And she wants to create connection, because that's what diffused awareness is about, is I want to connect with you. I want to notice many things that are around me and share it with you. So I'm gathering information. And then I notice that you're not really responsive, because I know you're in your single focus, but sometimes when you're unaware, you will interpret that as a means of him disconnecting, and it'll look like he's disinterested. So, this happened to me while I was driving. Before I knew all of this, I'd be in a car with a guy and he's driving me to a restaurant. And so instead of being in this space of we're not talking and no one's saying anything, I feel the need to say something. So I'll often say, hey, now when it comes to your work, what is it that you love the most about your work? And then, I notice he might kind of answer really quick and short answers. So I'll change the subject and go into, so what do you like about your weekend? How do you spend your spare time? And then again, he'll sort of maybe give a one-word answer. And sometimes I'll interpret that shit, he's really not interested in me at all. But in fact, he's just trying to focus on one thing at a time, which is driving and getting me to this place, and is not in a place to kind of hear all the questions that I have that I'm trying to funnel. So Alison Armstrong suggests that because men are in the present moment, they're not always able to be thinking outside of the immediate moment. And this doesn't mean that men can't answer these questions, but the timing is necessary for you to be able to have their full attention. So basically that's what's going on with single focus versus diffused awareness. So maybe some of you have been in those scenarios. Anybody out there? I'm checking in the chat room. But yeah, if anybody has been in that scenario, I know I've been, just give me a wave. But now we're going to go on to the second concept about reproductive limits. So for men, when it comes to dating, okay, the word means to have a social engagement with a person of the opposite sex. For women, there's a whole other reality. It's the pursuit of commitment. So as you can see, the dilemma begins, right? So this makes it easier for men to date more than one woman at a time, because he gets the definition of dating. When women date, it can feel like we're having a relationship immediately, even early on, because we're gatherers, we're connectors, we're designed to be the glue of the relationship. So we want to keep the family together. So dating other men can make a woman actually feel disloyal, considering her definition of commitment. So this is why we have a harder time with dating multiple men. So now, here's where the reproductive limits comes into play, because men, they don't have this sense of urgency with their reproductive system, which I'm going to kind of go into with you. Men can reproduce forever, whereas women, we have reproductive limits. So when we actually, let me go back to this screen, because this is really important about that little boy in the cute little baby in that eggshell. Somewhere between the ages of 27 and 29, women's eggs degrade. Then by the time women are 38 years old, their eggs are actually no longer worth harvesting. This is the information that I found out. Okay. And as women get closer to premenopausal, we can start in their 30s or 40s, that early, their body actually begins to shift. And that can make a woman feel like she's losing her beauty and her vitality. So hence the dilemma. Timing is different for both genders. So a woman can easily feel like she's wasting her time with a man if the dating process, I should say, doesn't progress fast enough, right? And this frustration can make her lose her joie de vivre, and it's going to affect her demeanor, because she becomes more of an interrogator. She needs to know, where is this going? Where is this going? Because I have reproductive limits. And then it can make a guy suddenly feel like, what is all this confrontation? I don't get this, And unfortunately, most men are not even aware that women have this biological clock or this timeline. They think that they're not aware of it because they don't have any kind of reproductive limits. We're faced with that at different stages of our lives constantly. So you can see how there can be many misunderstandings. So, and these are just two examples of the differences between men and women. So, those of you who registered for the call, actually, you get a free interview that I did with Frank Kermit about the 10 emotional needs of men. So when you listen to that, you'll find out other differences between, what women want emotionally and what men want emotionally. And so if you haven't received that, please email me at patty@sensualitysecrets.com and I'll be sure to send that to you. And now I share all of this with you because when you have understanding, you have freedom. You really do. It gives you the opportunity to kind of feel liberated and stop coming from this place of fear and scarcity mindset and allow yourself to have more abundance and more choice. And no, this is the dilemma that we're all dealing with, both men and women, the unawareness and the awareness of all of this that's going on. So based on my personal experience over the last few years, there's a difference between dating and the beginnings of a relationship. So here is what I have adopted as the definition of dating. It's to have a social engagement with a person of the opposite sex, or for those, some of you, the same sex, that you have a romantic interest in. So that's really important to get, because we're not trying to get to a committed relationship yet. We haven't decided that yet. And the beginnings of a relationship is when two people actually communicate. They are ready to move from casual social engagements to being involved in each other's lives where they can support each other. They're actually choosing to make each other a priority. And really, this only happens through authentic, honest communication, like I discussed earlier, right at the beginning of this webinar. We have to be those kinds of people and stop pretending. And unfortunately, some women settle for dating exclusively, assuming that it means the same thing as the beginning of a relationship. And this is where you really need to be clear with what you want out of being exclusive and communicate that to him. So there's an assumption that can be made that, unfortunately isn't correct. And right now my PowerPoint is frozen because I was about to send you to another page, and unfortunately I can't do that. So I'm just going to keep talking, and hopefully that circle of death, that circle that keeps going, will shift. And if it doesn't, I'll get maybe Sue to kind of help me out with that. But we'll see. For now, there's a circle of death. So I might have to stop sharing or start sharing, and maybe Sue, you can help me with that. But I'll keep going. I'm not sure. There you are, Sue.
It's just showing the whole screen. It's not.
What's that? Sorry, Sue?
It's not doing. It's just showing the screen. It's not showing the dial or anything going. So your mouse was showing for a little minute, but now it's not there.
So what would you like me to do to kind of keep going?
Yeah, try doing the stop sharing and reinitiating it.
Okay, I'm going to reinitiate and then good.
Yeah, now it looks like it's back.
No, it's my PowerPoint is still circling. What if I close the PowerPoint and start it again? I noticed that. I see that there's a question there. Because at what point do you communicate those intentions? So I'm going to try to multitask because now I'm very much in my masculine. So I'm going to see what I could do here. But that's a really good question. And this is where I'm going to answer this before I go to my PowerPoint slide. Usually what women have to really decide is do you decide, it's a personal thing. And usually the distinction on when this happens is usually has to do with when you're ready to be sexually active with him. So is that the time for you to, once you start seeing each other and you're going from first base to second base to third base, and now you want to actually, have intercourse and really learn about each other, that might be for you what it means to be in an exclusive relationship. For other women, they might feel, no, I want to be able to have sex with different men, and then later on decide if I want to be with that man. And that's some sort of the touchy point for some women, is deciding, is it before you actually become intimate with someone, or maybe it's after a few intimate dates where you want to know if you're even compatible sexually, and then you say, hey, I'm really not the kind of girl that is okay with knowing that I have sex with you, and I don't want to, continue seeing other men. Where are you at this point? So this is where you need to decide that for yourself. But I will tell you something more important later about the communication. I have some people that are asking some questions. I found a lot of men are too fast with wanting to go to bed. Yep, that is true. And again, this becomes part of what your standards or boundaries are. Every woman is different. And you may want to take your time because you want to get to know him first, so that at least when you do have sex, it at least feels like you're not with a complete stranger. But you want to this is where the authentic communication comes into play. So let me now go back to trying to quit while we stay on this webinar. I'm going to quit my PowerPoint for 1 second. I know some of you are still there. I get it. I'm sorry about this. I've opened it up again and trying to start over. I do apologize for...
Try to stop sharing the screen while you're doing this, because you're still sharing the PowerPoint. It might tie it up. There we are.
All right. Sorry about that. Once again, the glitches. Let me go back to the last, almost there, ladies. I'm almost there. Meaning sharing once again.
Joys of technology.
I know. For your patience. Oh, and we're back to all of these.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. You're all seeing how I'm moving forward. And here we almost, here we are. So there's a question here. Here. So
is it hung up again?
No, it isn't. It isn't. We're good. All right. So I just wanted to look at some questions here. When should it become exclusive? Like I said, that's a personal opinion. Oh, here it is. Cindy, please. What was the definition of the relationships? Oh, so the definition of the relationship, I go back. When two people communicate, they are ready to move from casual social engagements to being involved in each other's lives, where they support each other. And they're really to make each other a priority. So ultimately, when you're dating, whether you're dating several men, your goal is to really get to a place where you can find a potential partner, someone that you do become exclusive with. So in those playful sort of dates, you want to also start having some true conversations from an authentic place where you're sharing what you're both looking for. There's nothing wrong with being that forward. Also with your playfulness, you don't want to forget that. And I'm going to go into the specific formulas of flirting, and where we're actually doing an emotional connection first, and how we do that, because you get to find out about people's values and where they stand. So in the process of being that, it's coming. So you'll kind of get a sense of that if you just want to be a little bit patient with that. But maybe you'll have a better idea of how this happens within a conversation and while you're flirting. Okay. So we're moving right along into this whole thing of don't assume that just because you're dating one guy that it means the same thing to you. He's probably dating other women, and you want to stay open to dating multiple people until you have this conversation where you're ready to be exclusive. Okay. So yes, it's complicated. All right. And I say this because at midlife, okay, it's more complicated because dating used to be the prelude to a relationship, but not today. We're dealing with more divorce than ever before, more financial stresses because of blended families. So dating and not actually being in relationship, but just dating has become the kind of new normal. So this is why really You want to approach every encounter with a man as a conscious woman that wants to connect with his spirit, aware of this new paradigm, and not only be driven by fear, but as a woman wanting to fulfill her life's purpose and who she chooses to date and be in relation with. So someone that's in alignment with her. So the whole goal today with this flirting webinar is to learn to have fun in the process of finding out who's in alignment with you. Oh, just taking some water. And by the way, part of this requires authentic communication and feminine style communication. And this topic will be discussed thoroughly in my live event in October. So let me just take a few minutes to kind of tell you about it, because I'm really excited at this event, because I've invited some speakers, and one of them specifically is Valerie Green, who will be doing a deep dive into how to express your desires in a way that inspires a man to step up and want to make you happy, and how to test if he's actually emotionally ready. So you'll learn how to share your feelings differently through each stage of a relationship, from dating to long-term partnership. So you'll leave the weekend with specific tools on how to finally communicate in an authentic manner that removes the fear of speaking your truth. So once again, if you go to my webpage, sensualitysecrets.com/EYE, you can register for the event. I even did an interview with Valerie herself that you'll see there. It's about a 30-minute interview, and she gives you some tips on how to do that. And if you want to meet her live and go into this deep dive, once again, if you come to the webinar, because you've come to the webinar, you get a promo code and you type in webinar and you get a 50% discount today. So I just want to tell you that, because for those of you who have questions on the specifics on the feminine communication, she's going to give a huge session on this, and it's really an important and fun time. So now, by the way, I've listed here some of the dating coaches that I've either spoken to directly and gotten advice from, and other people like Alison Armstrong, I've read a lot of her books and listened to a lot of her seminars. You have Frank Kermit, who I've used personally, Evan Marcatz, who I've used personally, and Bobby Blum Palmer, who I've used personally. So these are all great people who've given, they're friends of mine. So at this point, they're colleagues, and we often share a lot of information together. So I recommend these people if you're looking for some information or dating coaches. Okay. So now that we have an understanding of the new paradigm, let's really dive into creating attraction and igniting desire. And this is really important to me. And the reason I'm talking about flirting is really because, once again, I really want women to feel like they have options, that you're dating several men to get to a place because you want to reach to date or to be in relation, not just to date, but to be in a relationship with a quality man. And depending on how long that relationship lasts, a wonderful quote was given to me by Lisa Nichols. And she said, relationships have three purposes. One of them is the lifetime relationships, means that this person will be around forever. And you can find that in friendships, or you can find that in a soulmate relationship. And then but that's not everybody always has that. Then you have the kind of relationship which is life-giving. It's designed to kind of show you that you still got it. And that can be one day, like it can be 1 or 2 years. It depends. And if it was designed for you to feel like, baby, I still got it and it's giving me my juice for life again, then so be it. And then there's the relationship that has a purpose, and that can be anywhere from 1 year and above. And when that purpose is complete, so is the relationship. And I'm sharing this with you because I want you to stay hopeful and positive with how a relationship will show up, because we are in a new paradigm. We can't just think that everything is about being with the only one person. And believe me, it's not that I don't believe in love ever after, but we're at a different time, and most people that are on my list, or the women that I talk to, are at a second stage in their life. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be dating someone for the next 20 years, or in relation, I should say, with someone for 20 years. It might be for 5 years, and it was the best thing that's ever happened to them until the next person comes along. So I just want you to stay open to that, because we don't know the new definitions of relationships are just different. And I think it creates new possibilities and sometimes new confusion. All right. So back to creating attraction and igniting desire. So I want to start with defining attraction. And attraction is the action or power of evoking interest, pleasure, or liking someone. So the good news about the action of evoking interest, right, is that this statement in itself tells you that you have control over creating chemistry. Instead of it being this abstract thing, which suggests that, you either have it or you don't. This kind of implies that you actually have some control in creating attraction. So that's huge. And then we have desire. And this is related to having a strong feeling of wanting something to happen, building the kind of tension that feels mysterious and that actually fuels the imagination. That sounds much more delicious. And this is why we want to have the ability while we're dating to create attraction and ignite desire, because it creates more possibilities with men and quality men. So one of the reasons why a lot of, as you see this beautiful woman here, it's easier said than done to say this because women struggle with this idea of creating desire, or igniting desire. And one of them is because, as you can see here, some women hold back on ever expressing desirability for fear of coming across as inappropriate or vulgar, or inviting sexual advances before they're ready, or they want to be respected for their mind and not just their body. And so you have this scenario where they'll look at that and say, no, I can't do that because I don't want to invite any kind of sexual attention. Or you have women like this who wrestle with their body image. They judge themselves relentlessly about their weight, their hair, their thighs, wrinkles, their stomach, and so on. And sometimes we're told that it's not good to be too loud or to be too aggressive or assertive. And in this process, it can leave a woman constantly in self-doubt and questioning herself. And so she stays stuck and actually avoids dating until she's more beautiful or more ready. And, the reality is that doesn't happen overnight. It's a constant work in progress, feeling confident and feeling good about ourselves. And sometimes, maybe you're the kind of person that's been focused on your career and your kick butt at work, but you've in the process probably sacrificed your femininity in the name of corporate competence and professional confidence. And so being playful and flirtation never occurred to you. Getting taken seriously in the boardroom took front seat to all of that girly stuff. Or maybe you exhibit characteristics that are considered typically of a boy, including wearing masculine clothing or engaging in activities that are dominated by men. And part of you longs to feel feminine, but the body language is rigid and even stiff, because when you do this, when you kind of live in a man's world, that energy can unfold and become part of yours. And you can come across as almost clumsy, and have no clue on how to create this soft demeanor. So this is why I've created the flirting formula, which, as you can see, is really made up of two parts. It's the ability of being a charismatic person and knowing how to create, I say, sexual interest or igniting sexual energy, whichever way you want to call it, but you want to use your sexual energy in order to ignite desire. And I'll explain how to do that very soon. So if we start with charisma and the definition of charisma, it's really the ability to leave a person with a positive impression of you and of themselves. And this is really important, this themselves piece, because in this definition, it's not related to any external factors about how you look or the makeup or how you're dressed. It's really related to a feeling. And therefore, a charismatic person gets what she wants by really making everyone feel good while maintaining ethical and professional boundaries, because you're there really to sort of create a rapport and connection. And it's a great skill to actually have in your workplace or when dealing with people who you want to create rapport with. So in other words, this is not about getting attention, but giving attention. Because remember, it's the ability to leave a person with a positive impression of you and of themselves. So how do you create this kind of harmonious verbal dance, which really makes you come across as charismatic? Well, I've observed that there's 4 common virtues that people want to feel when they're in the presence of another. Okay. And knowing how to use these traits with the intent to see the other person and create a connection will really help you stand out in the dating world. So the 4 virtues are these: appreciation, and I created an acronym, as you can see there, ACEs: appreciation, connection, elevation, and self-expression. And I'm going to dive into these 4 virtues. And for those of you asking about how do you start communicating the point where you're ready to go from dating to exclusivity, part of these social virtues and the way I'm going to talk to you about connecting with him will naturally kind of organically come to a place where now it's time to start asking the more deeper questions. You don't want to go there right away. You still want to create a certain kind of rapport and connection. And it's through these 4 virtues that you learn to do that. Okay. So the first one is appreciation. And that's letting someone know, here we go, letting someone know you understand and recognize their positive qualities. You're validating their efforts, their character, their values. There's nothing more precious than the feeling that we truly matter, that we contribute unique value to the whole, and we're actually recognized for it. So feeling genuinely appreciated lifts people up. At the most basic level, it makes us feel safe, which frees us to do our best work and show up as our best selves because people recognize it. So you feel better in that moment. So part of appreciation is really the ability to give compliments. They're like emotional deposits on someone's well-being. So compliments are like gifts. They let the person know that you're worth noticing, but only work if the compliments are sincere reflections of what you're truly thinking and feeling. So you want to be genuine and specific. So when giving compliments, not only by text, but verbally, but I thought this was kind of cute slide because that's how we kind of, in this new paradigm, a lot of us do it this way, right? So when giving compliments, you want to point out something specific because it shows that you're paying attention to the details. It gets you out of the mundane category. For example, instead of just saying, that's a really cool tie or you look great, you want to be more specific and kind of say, I love that tie with your outfit. It really ties it all together. Yet there's a certain kind of edginess about it that really is cool. I just went into more detail, acknowledging how he put his outfit together. Not a lot of men try to do that, but some do. But I'm just giving that example where don't just say you look nice, just kind of acknowledge what he's wearing. But I really think compliments, the kind of compliments that are better are the ones that really deal with other things, like their values and what they're about. So if you notice that they made an effort, like they did open the door for you, that you say, I really love that you opened the door for me. It really helps me let go and melt into my body and stay in my feminine. I've said that many a time to men, and they're really surprised. I don't just say thank you. I actually tell them what this does for me. So thank you for providing this for me. So usually whatever action they do, I let them know in the compliment what it actually provides for me, how it makes me feel. So that's sort of the really great way of giving compliments, really of being that kind of person. When I was in France and I walked into, some of you may have seen, I posted on my Facebook page about my truffle man and learning. I met the guru of truffles, and the second I walked into that bar/restaurant, I immediately go into scanning, because that's what we do, scanning the bar and looking at how it's put together. And I noticed it was a kind of cool place. So he was there. I didn't know that he was the owner, but I immediately complimented the space. I said, I don't know if this is your place, but I really love the decor. I love how you kind of set up this, the oils with the mush, with the truffles over there, and how the wine bottles are all kind of set up in a certain, by their size and their color. And anyways, I just went on and on. But the point being that I really wanted to appreciate the environment. And from there, it led into this whole great discussion about the actual bar, because I noticed I really love this, the way the metal and the wood and the glass is kind of put together. And he then went into a big story about his friend who actually did it and so on and so forth. Point being, be specific with your compliments. Tell them what it's actually providing you as the receiver of his presence, right? And what he does for you and the values that that shows. Even when he's nice with a waiter, tell him, I really appreciate the way you talk to the waiter. It really shows that you're this kind human being that really cares about everybody around them. That's a compliment. That's being specific. So take it to that step. Good. And then the next part is this part, appreciation of yourself. And why I took the time to actually write this in there is really because I think that the more you learn to appreciate yourself and your values and what you have to offer, the more you show up in a space of confidence and abundance. So I do a gratitude journal, and I used to do it more often than now, I have to admit, but I did it when I needed it the most, and it was two-sided. The one side was about the 3 things that I was most grateful for, so that it allowed me to really pay attention to what showed up in my life and how I was grateful for it. And then the other side was the three things that I was most proud of within myself, the gifts that I saw I contributed today. And it really helped me recognize my value. So I would, kind of give an exercise for you ladies to kind of do that perhaps. Yes, be someone that gives 3 compliments a day and be really specific with those compliments like I shared earlier. And then the other part of the exercise would be, journal on one side what you're grateful for, and on the other side, what are the things that you appreciate most about yourself, the gifts that you actually were able to contribute throughout your day. And notice how your self-esteem will begin to change. And again, that's going to change in your demeanor and the way you show up. Good. So that's appreciation, the first one. And then we move on to the next one, which is connection. So connection is finding where you relate with someone through perhaps mutual friends or common interests or similar experiences. Humans are social animals. We crave feeling supported, and we naturally connect more when we have similar interests and values. So it feels like, when we have things in common, we get each other. So in order to connect with people, you need to be curious about people. As you stay curious and open, you become attentive to their body language, the words that they choose, what lights them up. And when you're looking for commonalities within perhaps even their hobbies, you'll discover their values, who they are as human beings. So this is about really learning to be the kind of person that asks quality questions, and because it helps you uncover who they are. And these quality questions are literally who, what, when, where, and how. And I say who, what, when, where, and how, and not why. Not that why is completely bad, but sometimes when you ask why, it can have a tone that can come across as judgmental, like they have to explain themselves. And I'm going to give you an example of that. You're asking him about what are some of the hobbies that he likes to do. And he's going to tell you, I don't know, bike riding. I'm really into biking. I actually do it at a high level, and I race a lot. So if I ask, well, why do you enjoy riding your bike compared to what do you enjoy about riding your bike? Do you notice between the why and the what, there's a different tone? For me, it always, I don't necessarily go into why, because there tends to be an underlining judgment. Even if that might not be your intention, it can easily go there. So I kind of avoid why and I go into what. I'll say, where do you like to bike? With whom? Do you go alone, or do you have a specific group of friends that you like to bike with? How often do you bike? And all this sort of tells me a little bit about what kind of guy he is. Does he have a group of friends? How often does he like to do this? You can see how this can delve into someone's values. So these types of quality questions can help you get to a place to really know the kind of guy that you're with, And what's interesting is the commonality, what you find common, can show up in the most strangest or unassuming ways. And I say this because, once again, in my France trip, when I was talking to Philippe, by the way, that's the truffle guru guy, he was describing so poetically about the flavors of truffles and specifically about the timing and how you have to find these truffles and they only have a 5-week lifespan, and the timing of pulling the pig back if you use pig to make sure he doesn't eat it. And he kept describing timing. And in that moment, the thought of, for me, the commonality of timing that showed up for me was about dancing, because dancing is a lot about timing. So I just kind of inadvertently, at one point when he was done his story, I kind of said, it's interesting that you talk a lot about timing, because dancing really deals with great timing. And he says, really interesting that you should say that. Why do you say that? Because I'm a ballroom dancer. And then he goes into, oh my goodness, my kids are dancers, all 4 of them. And then we go into this tangent commonality of dancing. And it never would have showed up if I hadn't taken the word timing that ignited some sort of curiosity within me, and I went with it. So commonality sometimes can be just through the language that they're choosing, and just pay attention to what it does within you. So the exercise with connection I would ask all of you is to really talk to strangers. Start with your waiter or a coffee shop or even a clothing store. And it's about learning to pay attention and asking quality questions in order to uncover, people's depth and commonalities with you. So they can show up in the most interesting ways. So I would challenge you to start speaking to more strangers when you go out, and go out alone, because that gives you a better reason to actually talk to them. I do that a lot. My travel really forces me to be on my own a lot, with my intense coaching schedule, that I'll be eating a lot in restaurants alone. And I always talk to, whether it's the waiter or the person next to me. And I've made some cool friendships with a lot of these people. And it's not necessarily gender specific. It can be with women, whatever. But start talking to more strangers and practice this. And then we go to the next one, which is elevation. And elevation is really the ability to uplift someone's mood by putting a smile on their face and being more playful, being entertaining and funny. And this is related to the energy level, your vitality for life. Now, people like to be around people who inspire them, and inspiration can come in many forms. It can come in a smile, it can come in laughter, it can come in mindset. Your mindset alone can be the elevation for someone else. Your femininity can be an elevation for someone. Your physiology, the way you non-verbally communicate with someone, right? So all of this is by being excited, even the way you use your arms. You don't see me right now, but my arms are flailing because that's part of who I am when I'm getting excited about a topic. So that alone is a means of elevating the person that you're with. So don't leave it up to someone else to elevate you. Remember, charisma is about leaving a positive impression about yourself and themselves, right? So you want to be the one in charge of elevating things. So be the person that you like to hang out with. And that way you attract the kind of people that, are like you, kind of have this charismatic attitude. So, I'm really passionate about this idea of elevating also, because the whole point of it is that you become in charge of it. And sometimes I find that women on dates are more passive and can leave it, they're kind of watching and leaving it only up to the man. And for me, I say, screw that, be the kind of person that's in charge of making this experience fun. And if he doesn't engage in that, well, then, perhaps he's not the kind of person that you want to be with. But don't let that deter who you want to show up as, right? So, elevation, by the way, look at that beautiful smile, can show up and smile. And I'm saying this because, there's a good friend of mine that he always says, if you're happy and you know it, tell your face. And I always thought that was funny. And I notice that more and more today, that people don't always use a smile, because we're kind of in this digital age. We're always kind of looking at our phones or on our computers, and we don't pay attention to our environment or people around you. And it really was evident when I was in France, because I tell you, people don't walk around with their phones. They sit at coffee shops and everybody's talking. So it was amazing to actually look and smile and be smiled back at, and to have conversations in the most spontaneous of moments, because we have eye contact. And I know it's not easy in today's digital age in North America specifically. So I tell you, just be more conscious of using your eye contact and smiling. Because if you get one moment, just do it because you know he might look away because he's already busy with on his phone. So smile more because facial expressions don't merely reflect emotions that are also influence the people that are watching you. It actually raises the spirits within yourself. It makes you feel better. So smile. There you have it. Okay. And there was actually a study here. I wanted to share this with you that says when you smile, people treat you differently. You're viewed as attractive, reliable, relaxed, and sincere. And one study in a journal called Neuropsychologia, there you go, reported that seeing an attractive smiling face activates your orbital frontal cortex, the region in your brain that processes sensory rewards. So this suggests that when you view a person smiling, you actually feel rewarded. So reward people, everybody. So your exercise is to maybe put your phone down, when you're going for a walk, and start looking at people and smiling and just observe and see what happens. Just begin with that. And then we go into the next one. And the next one is the final one, which is self-expression. Self-expression is a display of individuality. It's through your words, your clothing, your hairstyle, your hobbies. Being expressed means that people will see your spirit, your uniqueness, and they will see the totality of who you are, and sharing of oneself can be the most generous act that you can do. Raising curiosity by sharing something new that you're learning. Perhaps that's a way that you can do it. For example, interesting facts, perspectives, current events, trivia, even something that happened to you at work that was interesting. Sharing yourself. This is how you become the person that's kind of self-expressed. You become that cool person that you want to date, and you consider all the areas of your life that you want to develop and that you're enhancing. And you want to share that with people because that's what makes you cool. Now, when I say this is not in a manner where you just do all the talking. And I say this with you because some women also say that often they find that they're the ones that are asking questions with men, and men, don't often ask the questions back. And this is where you really want to pay attention and look for those commonalities that, as I described earlier, perhaps in their words. And perhaps that commonality will lead you to sharing something that you're learning. And then you become that person that is self-expressed. So don't always wait to be asked the question, because often with men, they want to impress you. So they'll often talk a lot more at the beginning of the dating, only because they want to share everything that they're doing so that you think they're cool and you see what I'm up to and look how I could provide for you. Whether or not they're thinking about being in an exclusive relationship, they do this because they want to show that, look, I have a lot to offer you. So that's how I approach it when I see a man that's kind of talking a lot. I really set that intention. And then I look for an opening when it's time for me to be self-expressed, because I'm a cool person and I want you to know that, right? So you can see how you want to be responsible with kind of leading the life that you choose, and you want to be in a position where you can share that with someone. And so part of this is becoming a good storyteller. I say this with you because you want to be comfortable with telling a story. And the outline with kind of being the kind of good storyteller has 4 parts to it. One of them is being able to set the stage by sharing enough of the context for the guy to kind of understand the setting. And I'm going to share with you an experience that when I was in Barcelona, because when we talk about trips and do you like to travel, I say that, with again, yes, I've gone to different places in Europe, specifically Barcelona was one of them that kind of stood to mind for me. And I'll tell them, because I remember specifically, it was 12 o'clock in the afternoon and I was walking along the boardwalk along the Barcelona beach, and it was filling up with the local people who were coming out on their lunch break. So I've done that. I've set the mood. Then I've set the stage. Then 2, I create a mood by kind of recalling what it felt like to be in that moment. So I tell them, I remember actually feeling uncomfortable with the mass amount of people that literally in that moment, when they arrived at the beach in their business clothes, began to strip down into their undergarments to enjoy the afternoon sunshine. Like, I really felt uncomfortable that moment. I didn't know what to do with that. So here's a mood, and the mood that I'm actually feeling is this moment of uncomfortableness. And I want to tell them that I'm not always in this joyful experience of pleasure. There's moments where I feel awkward, and there I did. So then the third part is I use kind of realistic, simple dialogue, and it's not about scoring points. God forbid, I'm not like that at all. As a Montrealer, I mix English and French together all the time. We call that franglais in our area. So you kind of just want to give them a sense in your realistic feeling of what's going on. And I was amazed at actually, so I continue with my story, and I kind of go into this whole, I was amazed at their body confidence. They weren't affected by who was watching them, because most people were just minding their own business and enjoying the sense of freedom of being on the beach. And even if they just had 1 hour, they were going to step out of that comfort zone and take off their clothes and just, and be there and enjoy the heat. So being the kind of person that I am, I said, here I am. I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to step out of my comfort zone. And I'm going to do the same. I literally propped myself on the beach and took off parts of my clothing, and I even went topless because most of the women were topless. So I did it. I couldn't believe it. I was scared and uncomfortable, but I did it because I wanted to push my comfort zone. And in sharing this story, I want him to know that I have an adventurous spirit, and that's why I'm sharing the story with him, right? I choose my story specifically. And then the last part of the story, I want him involved. And that's where I want to make it interactive, meaning I check in with him to see his point of view. So I'll ask him, have you ever been in a situation where you started feeling kind of off and very uncomfortable and self-conscious, and then you allowed yourself to step out of your comfort zone? And what happened? Did you ever experience that? So I involve him in storytelling. So you want to become that kind of person that knows how to be a good storyteller. And I ask you to really create this kind of exercise, to pay attention to what happens to you in everyday life and make a story out of it. So that's an example of Barcelona. But on my blog, most recently, when I was at the Jazz Fest, I experienced something that was really unique, and I wrote about it, and it's called Angels Are Everywhere on my blog. And what I did when that scenario happened, I immediately told my friends, because I wanted to, each time I told the story, I remembered more details about it because it was such an amazing experience. I knew that I had to tell other people because there was lessons that I learned from a complete stranger. And then I wrote about it. And then I've shared it with a couple of dates with men. Because I actually was really taken aback by that moment. So I'm saying this for you to become more attentive to your everyday life and look for examples of how they can become really cool moments to share a story with somebody. Because that really tells me it's a way of becoming self-expressed, of becoming this kind of cool person that you want to hang out with. So those are the 4 ACEs. And I know we're going over time, and unfortunately it was because some of the glitches with what was going on. But if, all of you are still cool, I want to keep going because I have the next part about igniting desires. So are we good with everybody? Can I just keep going? Or do we have a lot of people still on? Carissa, maybe you can give me...
Yes, we have quite a few still on. So
awesome. Yay. Okay, let's keep going. So... share your story. Yes, there you go. There's the slide I wanted to tell you. Share your stories, pay attention to your life, and share it with people, because you become that much more interesting, and it kind of makes you feel good about yourself, right? So now let's shift from being this charismatic person, okay, to a more flirtatious person. As you can see here, shift from charisma to flirtatious. And now we're going to talk about the actual flirting part of this, which is related to really feeling desirable and having this wanting and yearning for something else to happen. You want to move from this place of, hey, I think you're really cool, and we're kind of connecting mentally and emotionally. Now I actually want to have a possibility of creating something romantic with you. So there you have it. We're moving into this place of creating what are the two ingredients that are needed in order to create desirability. And you'll see here, it's sensuality and feminine energy. It's those two things that create desirability. So we're going to talk about both of them in depth. Sorry about that. I'm just going on. There's a couple of slides that I did have a little glitch before getting on with you, and some of the slides got mixed up, but there you have it. We're going to discuss first this idea, if you go back to sensuality and femininity. So once you know that, we're talking about the second part of flirting, which is really learning how to use our sexual interest or our sexual energy in order to create romantic chemistry, right? So let's start with sensuality, because it's twofold. In order to ignite desire, we have sensuality and feminine energy. So sensuality, if I define it for you, it is the ability to elevate the senses and manage your sexual energy. So that's the meaning of sensuality, elevating the senses and managing your sexual energy. And this managing part is really where you're in control. It's like a dial that you can turn up or turn down. And the elevating the senses, you want to be the kind of person that truly is aware of what you see, smell, taste, touch, hear, even sense. And it helps you really be in the present moment. So that's really, when we talk about sensuality, is constantly fluctuating between these two components. So energy is life force. It's the quality and quantity of energy will have an optimal effect when it's directed with clear intention. And so that's why when we're talking about energy, whether it's sexual energy, sensuality, all feminine energy, you really want to pay attention to the quality and the quantity of it that's in your body, because for it to be most effective, you want to start with clear intent. It's extremely important. Okay. So when we're talking about sexual energy, it can feel like an arousal, a turn on in your body. And I've also observed that through my experience with Tantra, that it's a part of Kundalini energy, which is actually a spiritual healing energy that connects the body and spirit together. Sexual energy is also, in some circles, known as creative energy. Through it, we give birth to new life. And that life can be children, and it can also be new ideas and new projects. So don't diminish this sexual energy. If you want to believe any part of this is by truly living a life of being aroused and turned on, there's spiritual healing that comes with that. There's also this possibility of being creative, creating life and being creative with new ideas and projects, right? So and why I'm sharing this with you is because we do live in a culture that has this sort of bipolar relationship to sex. It's everywhere in advertising, film, pop songs, but we're also told that we're not allowed to have any of it and enjoy it. So most people never make the connection that their sexual energy is key to their creativity and their vitality in general. So this is why I really don't want women to shut that out. Consider your sexual energy as having a range. So at least start with knowing that you don't have to turn it off or turn it on, that you can increase it or decrease it depending on context. And you can actually do it for yourself by, when you are rubbing oil, know with clear intent that as you're rubbing oil all over your body, I do this all the time when I'm rubbing coconut oil, I know that I'm giving myself pleasure in that moment. I'm allowing my body to feel my own touch and how I appreciate it. So knowing that you're constantly cultivating your own beauty. That's why you have to make sure that you keep your sexual energy ignited. And then we talk about feminine energy. And feminine energy is about being more receptive. It's connected to the heart, where emotions are felt. It's about pre-manifestation through being attentive to internal cues. And why, as you see there, I talk about pre-manifestation, because for me, pre-manifestation is about pausing. and pausing long enough to assess what you're doing and if it's still in line with what you want to create. So I say this because often when we're in this idea of receiving and connecting to our emotions, it's really taking this time to pause, to check in with everything that you're creating in your life, because we do create all the time. And that's creating and doing is much more masculine. And the pausing is where we check in to see, am I creating in the right direction? So it's really important for me. Feminine edge energy has this pre-manifestation where I actually take a pause constantly. So I check in with myself as much as I can. How is this going? How am I feeling? Because I have a very full life and I can feel overwhelmed. And so I need to check in and do the things I need to do in order to nurture my feminine spirit, my sensual side, right? David Data, a man that I have followed quite a bit, describes feminine sexiness is the capacity of our bodies to move with light, to move with energy, to be seen as a sensual body. The feminine wants to enhance her radiance, not decrease it. And I really wanted to share this quote with you because it's really another reason to express why I'm excited about my live event that's going to be happening in October. You know, I teach women about movement and body language, and we all have moments of feeling insecure, and we want to feel like this kind of sexy confidence, as David Data describes. You know, we want to be able to feel that. And that's what I really love to deliver. And at my live event, we're going to have an entire session on movement, and you'll get to experience firsthand, physically, how to take your body from tightness to flow and radiance so that you can instantly shift your demeanor and walk into any room or any environment with complete physical confidence. It's the kind of learning that, if this is the kind of learning that interests you, to be surrounded by a group of like-minded women who are supporting your transformation, then go again to my webpage and register for the live event that'll be held in Montreal. Once again, the webpage is sensualitysecrets.com/EYE. It's in October. The date is from the 12th to the 14th. It is a 3-day event. It'll be held in the heart of Old Montreal. It's really amazing. You'll have your evenings free to explore the city and really apply all the tools that we're going to be learning. Once again, you will get a 50% discount. Instead of it being $997 for the 3 days, it'll be $497, and the offer ends at the end of this evening. So please take advantage of it, ladies. Remember, put the promo code webinar. And also, there's an exciting news that I have that I'll share with you at the end about winning a customized dress for you from one of the other speakers. I'll give you more details at the end, so stay tuned. That's going to be another plus for coming to the event. So onwards, masculine energy. This is more strategic. It's connected to the mind. It's giving in its nature and has clarity of purpose in constant manifestation through doing and planning. You know, as I'm doing right now and everything I had to do to plan for this. And, you know, every now and then there were small moments of checking in because I needed to get ready for this. But most of the time I spent my time checking in when I was in France and really being in receiving so that I can be more present and be re-energized for this webinar and for everything else that I'm about to do moving forward. So David Data also, I wanted to share this quote from maybe the couple of men that are here, and even, you know, for the women when we're in this place. You know, masculine sexiness is the capacity to stay totally present, not running or grasping, to see all of life and pick, for a man or a woman to pick his path and make clear decisions without hesitation. There's confidence to that. And so there's times in our, as women, that we are in our masculine, and that can be sexy because we are present, because we're not grasping, because we're headed towards something. You know, we've devoted to creating a life that we love. And in this process, it's going to require us to make decisions with the type of men that we date and who we want to be. So we need to sometimes be in our masculine. And there's something sexy about that. So it's learning how to transition between both, because ultimately, for this reason, we want to create polarity. And polarity within the masculine and the feminine context is when two people establish opposite energies. A sexual tension develops, allowing for a natural magnetic pull that draws the masculine and the feminine towards each other. So it doesn't mean you have to close off your masculine, but in the presence of another man, especially when it comes to dating and relating and kind of elevating and igniting desire and beginning to flirt, you want to be able to shift and transition and use this other part of you in order to create a natural magnetic pull. So, we use the first part of flirting to kind of see where this person is mentally and emotionally and kind of just create a charismatic demeanor and rapport with him. Then, in order to create this kind of polarity, the ways that I'll be talking about today specifically is through your physicality, because your demeanor, your nonverbal goes a long way with men. And when you really start using your body, the mind can't help but kind of follow suit with that. And it starts to create a different demeanor without you, you know. Tony Robbins talks a lot about motion creates emotion. So once you start tying into your physicality, you can really start learning to be in this playful spirit of creating desire, right? And being flirtatious. So in order to tap into this part of your being feminine and sensual and, creating this kind of demeanor where you step into a place where you create polarity, I've created what I call transition tools. And that's where women can really reach for these tools when they're feeling sort of an imbalance in their energy or they need to replenish their sensual nature. Transitions are really those few moments or seconds between your tasks throughout your day where you create the space and time to kind of pause and shift your energy. So it doesn't even have to be on a date. It could be on your way between meetings. Just remember that you're trying to replenish your sensual nature, your femininity. So it allows you to kind of help you reconnect with your body and give yourself the gift and the opportunity to become fully present. It just takes a few seconds to move into yourself and not think about your day and your next call. And in that moment, it becomes all about you. So I really want women, and I'm going to go through some examples, 3 specific ones, transition tools. But I really want to emphasize the importance of this because it creates a shift. And that slight shift is, remember, where the miracle lies, where the transition happens, where you begin to remind yourself of your femininity, of your value as a woman, and of your and nurture that sensual spirit of yours, right? So the first transition tool is what I call caressing yourself. The skin is the largest organ of our body, and it can be very sensitive. So touch can be relaxing. It can be reassuring, soothing, stimulating, bonding. You know, some simple physical contact will change how you relate to yourself and to your body. And the reason I took the time to say words like relaxing, soothing, stimulating, bonding, going back to this idea of your intent. Know that every time you give yourself and you touch your hairline or your shoulder or your collarbone or your arm, you're literally doing this. You're with the intent that you're relating to yourself and giving yourself self-love, right? And this became important to me. I have to say, there was a story that's attached to this when I was dancing. Let me see. Yes, there's my dancing picture. I was on a coaching lesson with one of my dance coaches, and he wanted to see us do the rumba, which is the most sensual dance of all dances. And it's really, the rumba is really about the woman. And I remember as he put the music and I began to do my thing, not 20 seconds into the song, to the music, he literally walks over to the music, the stereo at the time, and stops it. And he looks at me and he says, Patty, do you love yourself? And I look at him and I say, I think so. I don't want to get into any kind of personal stuff, but I think so. Yeah, I do. And then he says, well, you could have fooled me, because a woman who loves herself doesn't move the way you're moving. You keep flailing your arms everywhere and you're kind of like trying to grasp at things or trying to get his attention. There's something wrong about what you're doing. And he didn't specifically tell me how, but in that moment, his name was Larry. And let me just emphasize, Larry, who is now a past, but back then, he was in his 60s. He had a gin or a hard liqueur in one hand, a cigar in the other, and he put both of them down and he said, "Watch this." And right before my eyes, this guy began to transform. He started to go into this feminine demeanor, and I really started to pay attention, watch what he was doing. And I noticed how he was moving his arms, and every gesture he did started with self-touch. So literally, before he would reach an arm out, it would kind of touch his thigh and then go up to his waist and along the side of his ribs and up to his neck, and then his arm would come up. So he constantly kept rubbing himself, for lack of a better word. I know how that sounds, but he really did do that before he would move. And then I recognized that's it. That's what it is. I'm disconnected with my body. I'm just putting my arms out and forgetting to create this kind of self-touch moment. And that used to really actually change the way I moved. I started to create more curves as I was touching. I would arch my back even more and angle my body even more. So it started to have this ripple effect. So this is why I say self-touch is really important. So, you want to be the kind of woman that is comfortable with self-touch, because it really sends a message that you're accepting of your body and you're willing to make your self-pleasure a priority. Okay, I know this sounds sexual, but I really want you to understand that taking the time to kind of stop and caress yourself gently is really giving this message that your body and your well-being is important right now as I'm sitting here with you. And that's attractive to a man because it sends out a certain message about your sexual confidence, and they want to know that you feel that way about yourself. So the exercise that I want to share with you all is find moments daily to lovingly caress your neck, your shoulder, your arm, your back. Even, for example, when you're even if you're talking on the phone with him, you might want to do that just as a reminder that again, you're nurturing yourself in the process. So take the time to actually just casually self-touch, whether you're in conversation or whether you're standing in line at the coffee shop and ready to order coffee, whatever that may be. Take the time to do that and remember the demeanor that it's providing for those around you, because you have that intent. And even though it seems like it's very obvious, this is all very subtle. And I would say get used to practicing this when there's not a lot of people around, because you'll feel more comfortable to do it. Because sometimes in front of a man, it might feel awkward at first. So pay attention to doing that. The next transition tool is inner thigh awareness, ITA. And this is really important. It shows up a lot in dancing. When you allow your thighs to slightly touch, you put all of your focus on your inner thighs, and it changes the way you walk, the way you sit. And in my experience, you bring energy in and create a more inviting environment. I often talk about that as a dance consultant, and I'm sharing this with women. I want them to create a more feminine style movement. And I tell them you have to have a lot of inner thigh awareness, because just that intent brings the energy more inward. And when it brings the energy more inward, you'll notice that you take up less space. And in doing so, it creates a more inviting environment. And if you look out there and notice how people walk, you'll probably, or stand, you'll probably see this demeanor as you see here, a woman with her legs hip distance apart. That's considered quite masculine, not just because of what she's wearing, but also in her stance. You could be wearing a dress and the same effect will happen, at least for me. And the moment you bring, if you look at the previous one, this idea, the one on the right with that red dress, there's an inner thigh awareness as she's sitting and she has her legs crossed. There's something very feminine and sensual about that. So you want to be the kind of person when you're sitting or walking, just pay attention to your inner thighs and what that's like and what that demeanor kind of gives off. It really will change the way you show up, and it creates, again, this inviting environment. So yes, that's what we have there. bringing your thighs closer together. Transition tool number 3, lean back. This technique is designed to help bring your walls down, the resistance that's stuck in your energy and that's making you feel rigid. In dancing, we often say, we really want to have this ability to melt the ice that's around the woman. And often this expression is used with my partner. I remember my dance coach also telling him, you say, listen, the moment you take her and you look at her, your sole purpose in this movement is to melt her ice because her walls are up. She's not sure if you've earned her giving up her vulnerability to you, her letting go to you. So you need to melt that ice. So I thought that was really an interesting sort of distinction that he was sharing. And then I thought, what if I can create this for myself? Instead of putting that responsibility on men who are completely perhaps unaware, because that's the reality, they might not be aware, then why don't I start doing that for myself? So by leaning back, you literally, again, start with clear intent, is I want to be able to melt the ice that's been building up around me throughout my day because I'm in work mode. So when I'm talking to a man, I'll often lean back in my chair like I'm going to do right now. And if you notice when I do that, my voice kind of slows down. I'm in less of a rush. I kind of relax with all this and I'm more receptive to hearing what he has to offer. And I often say that I want to receive his masculine gift. So I lean back to be able to really notice that, like I'm watching my hero in a movie. I know it sounds corny, but I really, again, emphasize this because of the intent. And this idea of leaning back is to really remove any sense of confrontation and have this ability to melt the ice within me so that I can show up more open and more willing to hear what he has to offer. So you want to sometimes do this even when you're on the phone having a conversation with him. Instead of doing 2 or 3 things at once, sit back in your chair and lean back and notice that it's going to change the pacing in your conversation and allow for some sensual to show up, right? So lean back is an important tool. And again, I want to share how 2 people describe the same concept in different ways. Rory Ray, who's also a relationship coach, describes it as unzipping your heart and encouraging him to see your vulnerability. So she literally says, imagine that you are unzipping your heart when you speak with him. David Data describes it as opening yourself up to a higher power and showing your yearning. Doesn't this just sound beautiful? So when I heard both of those concepts, I immediately said, yes, I need to lean back to even be able to do that in my physical demeanor. So I use my physicality to allow this meaning to come through my intention, right? I'm aware of that's what I'm trying to do. So again, intent is important. So this is why you want to practice leaning back in your transition tools. So whether you're at work, having a conversation, maybe even a client, and you want to try to change your rapport and not be so, in your masculine, and you want to, perhaps you're trying to create rapport with them because they're having some difficulty. So you try to sit back so you can be more open and hear what this person is really going through, right? So lean back. So here, sensuality basically is the ability to elevate the senses and have that sexual energy that you want to be able to kind of dial up. So there you have it, the meaning of sensuality and the way to, as I described earlier, to be able to create desirability is really through your sensuality and your feminine energy, which we also talked about. So basically, this is the end of this whole idea of being flirtatious, and this part of sexual energy. Why I didn't go into it before is because I sort of want to end with this and let you know that the sexual energy piece, we're going to be able to focus on this at my live event event. Again, there's something about being in a space together, in a room where we're all supporting each other and doing these exercises so that we can really experience them at a granular level, not just mentally understanding this. So we're going to be doing some exercises where where we want to open up your sexual appetite and your sexual confidence. My personal journey in self-discovery is I really wanted to release the feeling of guilt that occurs when a person or a woman believes that they've been compromised or violated a moral standard by allowing herself to be sexually confident. And it's the worst feeling one can have, this feeling of shame, where you feel embarrassed or disgraced or even humiliated for admitting to myself that I wanted to explore my sexual appetite. So I really wanted to let go of that. So I learned a lot about how to love my body and before expecting anyone else to feel that way about me. And I did this by taking a more sensual approach in the bedroom. It's like sensuality gave me permission to explore my sexual appetite. So, and I want the same for you, to really own your sexual confidence unapologetically. So if you want to take part in this live event, in this sexy city like Montreal, go to my webpage, sensualitysecrets.com/EYE, and register for your seat. Yeah, it's going to be a great event, there. Thanks, Clarissa, for putting it up there. Really sorry I'm going forward here about creating connection through charisma and igniting desire through flirting. I'm just moving forward. There it is. Embrace Your Essence, my live event. It's really designed to learn to revive your feminine energy and reveal your core confidence. And human connection is essential to fostering a playful, charismatic attitude. And that can lead to flirting. And if you can choose to build and then from there, from charismatic, playful energy, you then go into creating this romantic chemistry that will, allow you to be more desirable and be more playful. So I hope you've gotten a lot of value from my thoughts that I've shared today. And more importantly, I hope you'll take action and with some of the quick tips that I give you and how you can start approaching dating from a new perspective and start practicing how to transition from masculine to feminine and how to communicate through creating this charismatic attitude, thinking about the ACEs, which was appreciation, connection, elevation and self-expression, right? And you could always listen back. I'm going to be sending you the replay for everybody that was here. So once again, look at these beautiful dresses. This was what I wanted to say for the end, which was Embrace Your Essence live workshop that I've created. I have the pleasure of also one of the speakers that will be there is Shakaya Leone, and she'll be talking about receptivity. But what she's agreed to do for me, to the people that are interested in coming and experiencing this, is one lucky woman will get to win a personalized, a custom-made dress that could look possibly like this or like this. Look at how beautiful. She's done this for her clients, and these are some pictures of her. She's also going to do one for me. And all you have to do is literally go to, in order to have the possibility to win this, is go to sensualitysecrets.com/EYE. There's details there. But what I want is for you to send me an email. And in this email, the email is at contest@sensualitysecrets.com, contest@sensualitysecrets.com. The details are on the webpage. And I want you to answer 3 questions. And you could do this on your phone. Just videotape yourself really short. How has Sensuality Secrets impacted you, especially after this flirting webinar? Maybe you're going to go out there and try some stuff and notice how it's different for you. 2, why would you like this dress? Tell me, do you have a specific occasion coming up? Or maybe it's just for yourself. I don't know. Tell me why. And 3, for extra chance of winning, show me your most sensual dance move. Probably take your phone from a distance and kind of give me some sort of grooviness. Have your friends tape you while you're doing this. And then we're going to go through the videos and pick one lucky winner to where she's going to literally customize a dress for you. You'll have a conversation with her and she'll set that all up and take your measurements and really ask you questions about your personality and give you something that's uniquely yours. So ladies, reserve your spot now for the live event. If you're interested, go to sensualitysecrets.com/EYE. Make sure you put in the promo code webinar to get the 50% discount so you can have it for $497. I just want you to know that I want you to be all the woman that you were meant to be, because you're worth it. So if there's still some people, I know we kind of went quite far, and I will open it up to some questions. If there's anybody that absolutely wants some questions, I'll stay on for an extra 5 minutes. We've gone 45 minutes past the time that I thought I would be, but I'm happy to see that there's still a lot of people. So if there are any questions, great. If not, come join me in Montreal. I'd love to see you all. I do see. Here's a question. I see one here from Cindy. Will these increase libido, the sexual appetite portion? It will definitely help the exercises. We're going to do a lot about, I see something here in the room. Awesome. There's still some people on. Yes, it will help increase the libido. We're going to talk about the whole concept of sexual energy and how to do it in subtle ways. And then if you're looking for more specific ways where I can always have an expert come in to talk about. Some people talk about taking certain hormones to help that out. I will really do it physically. So I know it has for me and a lot of people that I've worked with. They've noticed that they become more sexually open because we're in a space where we start removing the shame that's associated with that. So I do believe it will. So yeah, to answer that question, let's see if there's any other ones. I think that's most of it.
No. Bob just had a question.
Where does a man find a woman like this? There, Bob. You're so cute. The same difference. Where do women find men like that? I think we're all human beings that are working on ourselves constantly. It's a progress. It's constantly a process. Sorry. And as human beings, we fall in and out of love constantly too. That's what makes us human. We're not perfect. So I do believe that there are people like out this. Maybe it's a smaller pool of people, but I've met some, and some people I've had relations with, and some were long term and some were short terms, but they are there, and some no, there just are some friendships, and that's it. But I do believe it's possible, and they're there. It's just start to become open and looking for that. And yes, I have to say, if I'm completely honest, it's a smaller pool. But let's start widening that pool. That's why we're here. Start spreading this. Let's make more people aware. Margaret, how do you overcome shyness with someone you are attracted to? That's a really good question, because often when you're attracted to them, that's when you become most awkward and uncomfortable with. That's why I actually start with charisma. Put the attraction and the sexual energy second. Don't start with that. Start with charisma, because in the process of using those 4 words of let's see if we even are emotionally and intellectually connected. It kind of comes from the approach as 2 friends kind of talking. And of course, when you're attracted to them, sometimes that makes you feel uncomfortable. But that's why you need to date a lot of people, even those people that you're not attracted to, because it allows for the place to practice this. That's what dating is. It allows you to practice to show up as your more authentic self. That way, when you are attracted, this becomes more natural. It becomes more second nature. So I'm glad I answered your question, Margaret. But that's what I would have to say for that. So since there are no more questions for now, I want to thank you all so much for attending. It means the world to me that we had, over 300 people that registered for this. And there was a lot of people that were on the call. So thank you all so much. And for being so patient with the moments that we went in and out of, the naturalness of the webinar point, a PowerPoint that happened, some of the glitches. But I thank you all. And I look forward to seeing you all in Montreal. For those of you who are interested in coming, go to the website, sensualitysecrets.com/EYE to get all the details and information. Thank you so much. Good night, and be all the woman you are meant to be.